Here to inflate some brains, this is ARTexplains. Yay! Balloons have somehow finagled their way into our hearts as the go-to decoration for pretty much any gathering, finding a comfortable niche above the flowers and below the banners. But as simple as the sack full of gas concept is, balloons are complex in their history, production, and diversity. Allow me to explain. The first balloons in recorded history were made up of animal parts, specifically bladders, intestines, and sometimes stomachs. Bladders were often filled with water and kicked around by children, and intestines were filled with air and twisted into amusing shapes. This means that the first balloon animals were made from actual animals. These intestine balloons were very popular with the 14th century Aztecs, who gave them as gifts and burned them as offerings. Wow, entrails! Thanks! I'll burn them later! Reportedly, when contagious disease reduced the number of animal parts available for these balloons, human intestines were sometimes used instead. Fortunately for us, we now have much more kosher options for balloons. The credit for the invention of the rubber balloon typically goes to Michael Faraday in 1824, which was used mostly for scientific experiments. But the modern latex balloon wasn't invented until the 1920s by a man named Neil Tillotson. He somehow managed to become a millionaire during the Great Depression thanks to this invention. Which begs the question, who was throwing parties during the Great Depression?
Well, hey, son, I'm home. Did you find a job today, Papa? No, not today, son. Well, did you at least bring home some food? I brought you something better than food. You got the medicine!
Natural latex is harvested from mature rubber trees in much the same way that sap is harvested from maple trees in order to make maple syrup. A continuous clockwise cut is made in the bark of the tree at about 30 degrees above horizontal. This cut spirals down to a collection cup. This is done because the vessels containing the latex run in the opposite direction, and you want to cut across as many of them as possible. When done properly, the collection process doesn't hurt the tree, and one tree can produce latex for up to 40 years, which is enough to make at least 6 balloons. Probably more. But not everyone loves balloons. The fear of balloons is called globophobia, and it's understandable considering how loud they can be when popped. Surprisingly, this popping sound is not produced by the escaping air. What you hear is actually a sonic boom created by the latex moving really quickly. When a balloon is stretched far enough and then breaks, the latex contracts at faster than the speed of sound, which sends a shockwave to your ears. This is similar to the shockwave created by the crack of a whip. Under the right conditions, a popping balloon can be deafening. So don't be popping balloons indiscriminately, especially if they contain helium. Helium is the most common gas used today to keep balloons afloat. You might be surprised to learn that helium is mined from within the Earth, much like natural gas is, and the United States is a leading producer. Yeah, seriously, it comes from underground. It's trapped there due to radioactive decay. And, unfortunately, the supply is dwindling. Mined helium is a non-renewable resource in much the same way that oil is. There's still a lot of it in the ground according to geological surveys, but the current rate of consumption and lack of recycling is widely considered to be unsustainable. The price of helium is expected to rise until mining infrastructure can catch up to the demand. And there's plenty of demand. Helium is used in MRI machines, telescopes, deep-sea diving, welding, rocket engines, controlled atmospheres, and many other high-tech sounding things. And honestly, those sound a little bit more important than making colored balloons float. Is there something else we can fill balloons with? Well, historically, balloons were filled with hydrogen before helium was even discovered. Not latex balloons though, mind you, but airships. In 1783, the first ever manned hydrogen balloon flight took place in France. It lasted about 2 hours and covered 43 kilometers, or 27 miles. After that, hydrogen was hailed as a miracle gas and was widely used for floating military lookouts and transportation. However, enthusiasm for hydrogen deflated in 1937 when a ship called the Hindenburg was recorded on film catching fire and killing 36 people. Fortunately, there is a much safer option available for air travel by balloon, namely the hot air balloon. Full disclosure, I am a hot air balloon nut. I have a framed picture of some in my living room. I once dressed as one for Halloween, and here's a picture of one I drew when I was like 4. Simply put, hot air balloons work when you heat the air inside of the balloon so that it weighs less than it would if it were colder. This heating displaces air as the hot gas expands, creating buoyancy. A balloon can lift weight equal to the weight of the air displaced, which isn't much. This is why hot air balloons have to be so big in order to carry passengers.
Now hold on just a minute.
Introducing Luci, the devil's advocate. Yes, Luci, what is it?
You said that hot air balloons were safe.
Well, technically I said that hot air balloons are safer than hydrogen balloons, but yeah, hot air balloons overall are pretty safe.
They sure don't look safe.
Well, let's take a look at the statistics then. I did some math using data published by the National Transportation Safety Board. Across 2 years, ballooning had a fatality rate of about 2.5 deaths per 100,000 flight hours. This is compared to fixed-wing aircrafts, which had about 3.5 fatalities per 100,000 flight hours. This shows us that ballooning is no more fatal than traditional means of flying. From 1964 to 2014, a period of 50 years, only 70 people have died from hot air ballooning accidents in the United States. Compared to that, hang gliding is much more dangerous. Still, the prospect of something going wrong in a hot air balloon is terrifying, being so far off the ground, which is why it's good that regulations demand piloting licenses and regular safety checks here in America.
Oh, great.
But in 1785, regulations weren't so airtight, and two Frenchmen, Pilatre de Rosier and Pierre Romain, attempted to cross the English Channel using a hybrid balloon. I say hybrid because the balloon contained a sac for both hydrogen, the aforementioned highly flammable gas, and a sac for hot air, heated by an open flame. This worked out about as well as could be expected. By some accounts, the balloon rose to some 3,000 feet before exploding violently. Rosier and Romain survived the explosion only to plummet screaming to their deaths.
And now I'm terrified again. Hey everybody, Luci here. Thanks for watching Art Explains. If you want more, be sure to subscribe or follow us on Twitter so you know when the next video goes up. If you want to watch more right now, here's some episodes up here for you.